A monarchy is a type of government in which the king becomes the head of state. Monarchical system of government is the oldest system in the world. The legitimacy and political authority of the king can vary from symbolic, limited to fully autocratic, and can extend throughout the executive, legislative, and judicial territories. Monarchy also refers to a person or institution associated with the king or the government in which the king serves as chief executive. What is absolute monarchy? Absolute monarchy is a monarchical form of government in which the monarch exercises ultimate governing authority as the head of state. The power of the state was closely related to their ruler's power. It was important to curb the limitation on centralized government. Absolute monarchy is also referring to the form of government where its political power is held by one supreme law, where the king or queen is the one and only who can hold all the power and make a decision, such as king and queen have responsibility in appointing people to collect tax. Due to this, the ruler of absolute monarchy holds a lot of power by itself. His or her are not limited by a constitution or by the law, differs from limited monarchy. What is limited monarchy? Limited or constitutional monarchy, where its government in a country has a king, whose king in the country agrees to share power with the parliament. This is because the power of the king in the country that practices the system of limited monarchy is very limited. Apart from that, the king is only a symbol of sovereignty for a country such as Malaysia that practice this limited monarchy.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Khalidatul Azhan binti Razaki from AM1103C. Today I would like to explain about characteristics of absolute monarchy. I will summarize from what we have discussed in our assignment. The first one is power is passed on through bloodline, which is generation to generation. It means that crown moves from one ruling close relative to some other close relative. The throne normally passes toward the next section of the community. If there is no eligible child, the throne passes to a brother or nephew or niece or other relation. There have traditionally been variations in succession system, primarily focused on the issue of whether inheritance is restricted to males or whether females are indeed qualified to be heirs. The second one is ruler has unlimited power. Absolute monarchy is a structure where only person is given all the responsibilities. The king takes all the decisions. So the society does not judge absolute monarchy, and there are therefore better risk of revolt. The public could not dispute any decision made by ruler, as they have no right to voice out their opinion. For example, Louis XIV was the king of France in 1643, and at the age of 4 he remained the king. Since reconstructing the French government, Louis XIV influence of everything, and he had all the authority to make decisions. He made it very clear that he would hear the opinion of everyone but his decision. He had power over government, taxation, foreign affairs, and economy. He should not share his power with someone like Parliament, for he ought to have full power over his country. Okay, the last one is ruled by one person. Absolutely monarchy is clear that such a government is founded or run by someone who have absolute power, which is basically ruled by queen and king. So the rulers who held all the powers in a country, and under their rules there were no checks and balance on their power. For a country, that practices this system of monarchy only comes from a large of absolute power, where this government will carry out all determine the laws that will be implemented in the country. The reign of this monarchy is also generation to generation, and the descendants of the kings and queens do not come from the most people. So the people are more likely to follow all the government instructions, and the people are also very loyal to their country's government.
Thank you to the previous presenter. So now I will explain about the advantage of the absolute monarchy. So the first advantage of the absolute monarchy is ruler has a lot of power and stable position. The only person who can hold all the authority and opinions is the head of state. There is no equality for people and no right to vote or be part of the making of legislation or elections or decisions. When there are laws to be made to benefit the people, an absolute monarch can command to get this done. This in turn will make the people more thankful that their needs were addressed in the shortest possible time. Second advantage of the absolute monarchy is it allows for quicker decisions to be made. As we know, the monarch has authority over his land and people. They don't listen to advisors when it comes to making decisions. But yes, they may have people who help them out, but ultimately the final say lies with them. With this kind of leadership, decisions can be made as soon as possible and not drag on for years. The people want answers to problems, and sometimes having a monarch decide these matters allows for a quicker run through all the issues that need to be addressed. Last but not least, the third advantage of the absolute monarchy is as decision in the nation, administration and welfare can be made and implemented immediately. It allows for long-term goals to be planned and met. A monarch rules for life. As such, they make plans for the long term. In some ways, this is beneficial for the country because it won't likely get scrapped, unlike when someone else assumes office and decides not to pursue the plan because it's not part of their agenda. For a monarch, issues that arise during their reign has a good chance of getting addressed given they rule for life.
Okay, so we already know the advantage of absolute monarch. Then we move to the disadvantage of absolute monarch. The first one is people do not have much freedom of speech. As we all know, the absolute monarch is ruled by one, so all the decision is made by the king, or we call it the ruler. This means that the citizens do not have freedom and no right to vote or to be a part of lawmaking and election. For an example, in Saudi Arabia, the new legislation requires that the unmarried couple to live together for the first time. This explains that the absolute monarchy system has a power to control their citizens. The second disadvantage is no controls the monarch's power can lead to poor decision making. This means that an absolute monarch can lead to poor decision making since being the offspring of previous monarchs is no guarantee that the successor is fit for the job because policy is based on the monarch's own view. It may shift radically from one monarch to another.
The third disadvantage is it contradicts with the principle of sovereignty and democracy. The king retains supreme autocratic control which is not regulated solely by written. By reference, the legitimacy of the chief of government stems from its legitimately constrained unless confined by legislation, either legislative in absolute monarchies. After the French Revolution, which advocated philosophies of government found on democratic authority, this acceptance of both the idea of the absolutist monarchy decreased dramatically. Democratic sovereignty is the idea that the agreement of the citizens by its legislature, who are the basis of all legislative power, the sovereignty of a country and its government are owned and run. Sovereignty is a governmental heart, obligation and authority over itself without any intervention from outside sources of entities. The two kinds of government are usually direct and democratic. The primary voters vote in a proportional representation and negotiate on statute. The voters elect politicians of a democratic republic to decide and vote on laws, such as in parliamentary or presidential democracy. The features of these two fundamental forms are fused by liquid democracy. In conclusion, it is clear that the absolute monarchy is a form of government that was common in medieval Europe until the end of the 18th century. It included a world dominated by an all-powerful king or queen. The ruler has full influence over all phases of life, including political power, economy, and all forms of authority. With the addition, the king was able to retain total dominance over society, which meant citizens being put in separate states of authority. Hereditary law means that regardless of their birth, the king earned his place as one of a long family line of monarchs. This furthered the dominance of the monarch, for it ensured that the king or queen could not receive their power from the people. Therefore, the people had no influence or control over the rule of the monarch.